I did think about, like Derek and I talked about, everybody makes their own decisions and everybody makes their own choices, but they're not the only ones that suffer the consequences. Everyone around them does.
The truth is darker than anyone imagined. Jill Dillard, once seen as the obedient daughter in the Duggar family's carefully crafted public image, has broken her silence in a stunning exposé. She reveals a world of strict control, emotional manipulation, and hidden trauma behind the whole facade of 19 kids and counting. Far from the picture-perfect life portrayed on TV, Jill's account pulls back the curtain on years of pressure, secrecy, and pain. Are you ready to hear secrets from Jill Dillard? Let's get started. Jill Dillard grew up in one of the most well-known reality TV families of all time, the Duggars, who were featured on TLC's 19 Kids and Counting. On screen, the Duggars were portrayed as the epitome of wholesome family values, strictly religious, morally upright, and dedicated to their large, tightly knit family unit. However, behind the scenes, Jill and her sisters endured a much darker reality, hidden from the public eye for years. For much of their childhoods, they were subjected to a series of disturbing family secrets that no one could have imagined given the public image the family cultivated. As Jill grew older and began to distance herself from her famous family, she started to reveal the truth about the troubling dynamics within the Duggar household. Over the years, Jill and her sisters, who had once been raised under the watchful eye of their controlling, authoritarian parents, began to speak out about their traumatic experiences. These revelations painted a very different picture from the one seen on television. Jill's estrangement from her family was gradual, and it came after a series of painful events that forced her to confront the uncomfortable truths of her upbringing. Although she had been portrayed as a dutiful, obedient daughter in the Duggar family, Jill eventually opened up about the emotional and physical abuse that had been kept secret for so long. These painful stories about her childhood provided a stark contrast to the image of the perfect, God-fearing family that had been carefully crafted for the cameras. The Duggar parents, Jim, Bob, and Michelle, held their children to extremely high standards, especially when it came to behavior and appearance. Their family, which gained fame through TLC's 19 Kids and Counting, followed strict rules designed to maintain their image of a pious, conservative, and tightly controlled household. For the girls, the rules were especially rigid. They were only allowed to wear dresses or skirts, never pants, as part of the family's belief in modesty. Dating, as it was traditionally understood, was prohibited, and instead the children were encouraged to participate in a system of courtship where romantic relationships were arranged and overseen by their parents. The girls had little autonomy when it came to making decisions about their personal lives. Additionally, the Duggar children were not allowed to consume popular media such as television shows or music that were deemed inappropriate by their parents' strict moral code. The Duggars' public image was one of unwavering obedience, with the children often appearing happy to follow their parents' guidelines, seemingly content in their controlled environment. However, as the children grew older and began to leave the family home, the facade began to crack, and the hidden tensions of their upbringing started to surface. Jill Duggar, the second oldest daughter, was one of the family's most obedient children. She adhered to her parents' rules and rarely questioned their authority. This was especially evident when it came to her courtship with Derek Dillard, a man whom her father, Jim Bob, had chosen for her. Derek had been a pen pal of Jim Bob's before being introduced to Jill, and their courtship was tightly monitored by her parents. In 2014, after a period of courtship, Jill and Derek married, marking the beginning of a new chapter in her life. While the marriage was presented as a love story, it was also a continuation of the control her parents held over her life decisions. As Jill's life unfolded beyond the Duggar household, however, she began to slowly question and ultimately distance herself from the restrictive rules and the hidden secrets that had shaped her childhood. When Jill Duggar married Derek Dillard in 2014, the couple's wedding seemed like the start of a new chapter in a seemingly picture-perfect life. However, no one could have anticipated the shocking turn of events that would soon unravel, causing an irreparable rift in the Duggar family. Less than a year after their wedding, devastating news came to light that shook the Duggar household to its core. It was revealed that Jill's brother, Josh, had been involved in inappropriate actions toward 4 of his sisters during the years of 2002 to 2003. The public revelation of these actions was a scandal that stunned the world, as the Duggars had long been portrayed as a wholesome, devout Christian family, and such behavior was unimaginable given their carefully crafted image. The revelation was just the beginning of a long and painful journey for Josh's victims, including Jill herself. Both Jill and her sister Jessa became the center of a media frenzy as it was disclosed that they were 2 of Josh's victims. In a highly publicized interview with Megyn Kelly, both Jill and Jessa appeared on national television, visibly upset but still trying to defend their brother. They minimized the severity of his actions, which left many viewers questioning the family's understanding of the gravity of the situation. Despite their efforts to downplay the events, the consequences were unavoidable. In the wake of the interview, the Duggar family's public image took a massive hit. Just a month later, TLC, the network that had aired 19 Kids and Counting for years, made the decision to cancel the show. The Duggars' once thriving TV career crumbled, but TLC was not ready to completely sever ties with the family. Instead, they decided to create a reboot of the show, Counting On, which focused on Jill, Jessa, and their growing families. The show continued without Josh, who was excluded from participation due to the scandal, but it did little to heal the wounds within the family or their relationships with the public. For Jill, the fallout from her brother's actions, coupled with the growing divide within her family, marked the beginning of a new and painful chapter of her life. In 2017, after years of being in the spotlight as part of Counting On, Jill and Derek Dillard made the unexpected decision to leave the show, a move that put them at the center of a significant public controversy. Their exit shocked many, as the couple had been featured prominently in the series, and their departure left fans wondering about the reasons behind the sudden change. However, the controversy surrounding their exit was just beginning, and the true cause of their departure would send shockwaves through the public. Around the same time Jill and Derek left the show, Derek launched a Twitter tirade that would lead to widespread outrage. His comments were directed at Jazz Jennings, a transgender teen and star of TLC's I Am Jazz. Derek's remarks about Jazz were widely seen as offensive and transphobic, sparking backlash from both fans of the show and advocates for the LGBTQ+ community. Many people were disgusted by his comments, and the outrage was so intense that a petition was launched to have him removed from the family's show. Fans were calling for TLC to take action against Derek for his offensive remarks. In response to the public outcry, TLC announced that they had severed ties with Derek and that he would not be working with the network in the future. This statement suggested that Derek's departure from Counting On was directly related to his controversial comments about Jazz. However, Derek soon countered with his own version of events, claiming that his rift with TLC had begun months earlier. According to Derek, his decision to leave the show was not solely due to the Twitter incident, but was rooted in deeper issues with the production of Counting On, issues that he had grown frustrated with over time. Despite his attempt to clarify the situation, the damage had already been done, and the controversy surrounding his exit continued to loom over the Dillards' relationship with the public and their future with the network. When Derek Dillard made his public statement about his departure from Counting On in 2017, he was relatively tight-lipped about the full extent of the issues that had been brewing behind the scenes between Jill and her famous family. At the time, Jill was widely regarded as the golden child of the Duggar family, a model of obedience and the epitome of the family's strict values. Her decision to step away from the show, alongside Derek's controversial remarks, raised eyebrows and left many fans wondering what had caused such a dramatic shift in her life. The eventual estrangement between Jill and her family was both shocking and difficult for many to understand, especially given her previously unshakable loyalty to her parents' rules and beliefs. It took years for the full extent of the rift to come to light. In 2020, long after the dramatic exit from Counting On, Jill and Derek began posting videos on their YouTube channel, offering a glimpse into their daily lives. At first, the videos were mostly casual vlogs documenting their experiences and family life. However, as time went on, the couple decided to share more personal details about their journey, eventually opening up in a Q&A style format. In these videos, Jill revealed more about her upbringing than she ever had before, addressing questions about her family and the strict rules she had lived by as a child. For the first time, she spoke candidly about the limitations placed on her during her childhood, explaining how the Duggar family's rigid structure had shaped her decisions and her worldview. She also discussed why she no longer adhered to those rules, a significant break from the values that had once defined her life. Jill acknowledged that her estrangement from her family was ongoing, a painful reality that had been unfolding for years but had been kept out of the public eye. The revelation of these intimate details was shocking to many, as it shed light on the deeply personal and, at times, heartbreaking reasons for her distancing from her famous family. Jill's story, which had long been a mystery to fans, was now unfolding in real time, and the truth was even more complicated than anyone had imagined. The reason for Jill Duggar's estrangement from her family appeared to be much more complicated than anyone could have imagined. In a video shared with their followers, Jill became visibly upset as she explained that she didn't want to go into the specifics of what had caused the rift. She mentioned that she had been dealing with disagreements that had led to her separation from her family, but the details remained vague, leaving viewers to speculate about the underlying cause. Most assumed the conflict had something to do with her new lifestyle or perhaps disagreements with one of her many siblings. However, just days later, Jill and Derek Dillard revealed that the source of the rift was not who anyone had expected. It was with Jill's father, Jim Bob Duggar. In subsequent interviews, Jill and Derek opened up about the tensions that had been brewing since they left Counting On in 2017. They shared that, despite appearing on the show for years, none of the Duggar children, including Jill, had ever been paid for their appearances. Instead, Jim Bob Duggar was the one who received the payment for each episode the family appeared in. He had presented the show to the children as a ministry, emphasizing that it wasn't about money, but rather about serving a greater purpose. This, Jill explained, had been a hard pill to swallow as she realized the truth about the financial arrangements and her lack of compensation for her time on the show. The revelation took a dramatic turn when Jill shared that she had taken legal action against her father. While she didn't confirm whether she had filed a formal lawsuit, she did explain that she had hired a lawyer to help her retrieve the money she believed she was owed for years of work on the family's show. Derek added that although it may have appeared that the family had received large sums of money from the show, the reality was quite different. The payments they received amounted to little more than minimum wage when broken down. This admission added another layer to the growing tension between Jill and her father, and it revealed the financial struggles and emotional toll that had been kept hidden from the public for so long. Jill Duggar's shift away from the strict lifestyle her parents, Jim Bob and Michelle, had raised her in became more apparent after her marriage to Derek Dillard. Jill, who had always adhered to the Duggar family's values, dressing in modest dresses, avoiding mainstream media, and maintaining a highly controlled lifestyle, began to embrace new freedoms. After marrying Derek, she started wearing pants, listening to mainstream music, watching TV shows, and even got her nose pierced, choices that were far removed from the conservative and sheltered life she had been brought up in. This dramatic departure from her parents' rules marked a clear break from the strict guidelines that had defined her childhood, signaling a shift in her personal identity and values. Jill's transformation, however, was not well received by her parents, who were strongly opposed to her new lifestyle. They were concerned that Jill's choices might influence their younger children, who were still living under their roof and following the family's strict rules. The growing tension over Jill's evolving lifestyle and the unresolved conflict over money with her father took a severe toll on her relationship with her family. Reports suggested that Jill was effectively banned from entering her parents' house, a move that was both shocking and unprecedented in the Duggar family. This marked a painful and public rupture that had never occurred between any of the Duggar siblings before. Amidst this growing divide, Jill's sister Joy, who had once been considered one of Jill's closest family members, seemed to publicly call out her sister. While Joy didn't directly address the specifics of Jill's estrangement, her comments were seen as a subtle rebuke of Jill's choices. This public divide was particularly striking because the Duggar family, known for their close-knit relationships, had never experienced such an open fracture between siblings. Jill's decision to go against the family's teachings and her strained relationship with her father created an unprecedented rift, one that would continue to shape her relationship with the Duggars for years to come. In 2020, a post from the Instagram account Duggar Bates Confession stirred up more controversy and added fuel to the already tense situation between Jill Duggar and her family. The post featured a fan's opinion about Jill's estrangement from her family, which expressed confusion and frustration over the public nature of Jill and Derek's personal struggles. The commenter wrote, "I realize Jill Duggar needs to distance herself from her family for mental health reasons, but I don't understand why they need to make their issues with their families so public. Speaking out against them publicly will burn more bridges between them. They say they want to repair the relationship one day, but their actions don't reflect it. If I have an issue with my family, I deal with it privately and I certainly don't bank on it, going to media outlets and YouTube to air out their dirty laundry. It's not very Christian if you ask me. I get the sense that Jill and Derek need money, and this is an easy route to get that money." The post, which was critical of Jill and Derek's decision to air their grievances publicly, became even more pointed when it was discovered that Jill's younger sister, Joy, had liked the post. This action was seen as a subtle endorsement of the commenter's view, which implied that Jill and Derek were exploiting their family issues for financial gain. As fans and followers took notice of Joy's interaction with the post, her approval of the critical comment quickly drew attention, and she later unliked the post in an attempt to distance herself from the fallout. However, the damage had already been done, as it was clear that there was still significant tension within the Duggar family, particularly between Jill and some of her siblings. Despite the ongoing public scrutiny and family division, Jill and Derek remained committed to addressing the situation with care. In an October 2020 video, Jill shared that she and her family were actively working on healing their strained relationship. She acknowledged that they had moved past many of their financial issues, which had contributed to the tension between them, and expressed hope that reconciliation was possible, though the journey was still ongoing. However, the public nature of the disagreement, particularly the involvement of social media and media outlets, continued to raise questions about how the Duggar family would repair their once close relationships. In April 2021, the Duggar family was rocked by a scandal that would forever change their lives. Josh Duggar, the eldest son, was arrested for possessing child sexual abuse material, CSAM, on a computer at his workplace. The news was a devastating shock to the entire family, particularly to his 4 sisters, including Jill, who had been victims of Josh's inappropriate behavior years earlier in 2003. The arrest not only reopened painful wounds for his victims, but also placed the entire Duggar family under a harsh public spotlight once again. At the time of Josh's arrest, Jill and her husband Derek Dillard issued a brief statement to People magazine expressing their sorrow. "We just found out this information yesterday. It is very sad." Their reaction highlighted the deep emotional toll the arrest took on them, as they had already distanced themselves from the family due to past tensions and unresolved issues. Jill's past as one of Josh's victims had always been a sensitive and painful subject, and this new revelation brought everything back to the surface in an incredibly painful way. Following the arrest, Derek became increasingly vocal about the deceptive nature of the Duggar family's public persona and their dealings with TLC. He claimed that the public had been misled by the Duggars and the network, which had painted an image of a wholesome, religious family. Derek's criticisms exposed the family's behind-the-scenes struggles more than ever before. He suggested that the public's perception of the Duggars had been manipulated, with the truth about the family's internal issues being hidden for years. The arrest, and Derek's subsequent statements, marked another chapter in the ongoing unraveling of the Duggar family's carefully crafted image, and it further strained the already complicated relationship between Jill and her family. As the fallout from Josh Duggar's arrest continued to unfold, it became increasingly apparent that the Duggar family was deeply divided. While Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, the parents, stood firmly by their son's side, many other family members began to speak out and express their disapproval of Josh's actions. The divide was particularly striking, as the Duggar family had long been known for its public unity and strong Christian values. However, with Josh's arrest for possessing CSAM, the cracks in the family's carefully constructed image began to show. Jinger Duggar and her husband, Jeremy Vuolo, were among the first to publicly distance themselves from Josh. Jinger had previously maintained a more progressive stance within the family, but her support for her brother seemed to diminish as the truth came to light. In addition, Joy Anna Duggar and her husband, Austin Forsyth, who had seemed to be on good terms with Jim Bob and Michelle just months earlier, also began to speak out. Their disapproval of Josh's actions marked a significant break from the Duggar parents' unwavering support of their eldest son. This public split between the family members who supported Josh and those who did not became more pronounced as time went on. Many of the Duggar daughters, who had long remained silent about the family's internal issues, found themselves in a difficult position. Their choice to publicly criticize Josh's actions seemed to signal a shift away from the values the family had long upheld. As more family members spoke out against Josh, it became clear that some were beginning to reconcile with Jill, who had been estranged from the family for years. The rift between Jill and her parents had been one of the most shocking aspects of the Duggar family's unraveling, but as the tension with Josh escalated, it seemed that some family members were working toward mending their relationship with her. This shift in the family dynamic suggested that, after years of turmoil, some healing might finally be possible for Jill and her family.